It seems like it's been 40 weeks since you got 40 winks. Your back pain? Unbearable. Tossing, turning, trying to find that pain-free position. And that's the moment you realize you can't spend another waking moment putting off treatment.
The Joint and Spine Center is Cincinnati's leading destination for spine care, with a ton of surgical and non-surgical treatments for back pain. So when a moment has the power to change the rest of your life, go to the one place with the power to change it for the better, the Christ Hospital Health Network. This changes everything.
The Pound This Podcast is brought to you by the Christ Hospital Health Network. This is the Pound This Podcast, episode 628, Finding Motivation When Your Partner Has a Different Lifestyle.
I want to lose weight, but I don't know how to get started.
What should I meal prep every week?
How do I get those sweet booty gains?
Inspiration for your healthy lifestyle. The Pound This Podcast with Amanda Valentine.
What's up? Thank you so much for listening to the Pound This Podcast. I am Amanda Valentine, and let's talk about when your significant other or partner has a different lifestyle than you, because I am living that life and I have been living that life for almost a decade. And this was actually a question that was asked on my Instagram stories. If you don't follow me on Instagram, please do at You Can Pound This. And that's where I'll put some little question boxes in there so I can answer some questions on this podcast. And I know that I've covered this before, but it's always really good to revisit because so many people find it very difficult for very understandable reasons of when you're living in the same household as somebody and they live a completely different way. Think that the biggest problem is just eating differently versus the exercise thing. And how do you stay motivated when, the person that you do all your stuff with doesn't match the same lifestyle? So I can only, for me, speak from my own experience answering this, and also coming from a place, I'm just going to talk about my husband, and I don't have kids, so I don't know how, that plays into a mix. And I've brought up other experts and stuff on this podcast before discussing about healthy eating and incorporating your kids and stuff. But this is just purely your partner. And so, at least for my story, I've been with my husband, Mike, for almost 17 years now, which is crazy. And when we first started dating, we just power drank. I mean, I had just turned 22. And so we just got wasted on the weekends, to be honest with you. So it was just getting drunk and eating like crap. And we did that a lot. And that's kind of how we dated. And then even, as I yo-yo dieted, those just went in such spurts of 6 months. You know what I mean? It was never anything long-term. So I would be really strict and hardcore with the diet that I was on at the time. And he just kind of did his own thing. And I think it was there that I kind of really had more downfalls and less, I want to say resistance, or I guess willpower, or just determination to not eat the crap that he has in the house. So, that's where I have just broke down and, just ate 24 chicken wings because I was depriving myself from a diet, and then cry on the kitchen floor. And, he would have stuff around that I just would just go into a binge. So I will say at first it was very difficult for me. And I think a big problem with that is because I was restricting myself so much. So that's, I think, finding a place of some balance, where it's not like I am only eating chicken, broccoli, and rice, and there is no room for anything else. And everything that you eat or going out to eat is cut out of my life. That's, I think, a recipe for disaster, because speaking from personal experience, that was a recipe for disaster for me, because I think any sort of thing that you deprive yourself of, if you love carbs and you decide to do a carb-free diet and you think that you're going to do it long-term, it's ultimately going to go to a bad place, because if you love carbs, life without carbs sucks. And so, you know what I mean? So it's just not sustainable anyway. And so it just makes it worse when the things that you're most tempted by are in the house, or if you're used to hey, we go out on the weekends. I mean, I don't know what your life is like now in COVID, but you know what I mean? Just doing things that usually involve drinking or eating, and tell yourself that you can't. It just doesn't have long-term success. I think that where I learned to have more success with it and be in a place now where my house is filled with junk food, because that's all Mike eats. Just a lot of junk food, a lot of what was he making last night? Chicken pot pies. He would like the banquet pot pies and Ruffles and just, like Twinkies. He got some new Valentine's Day Twinkies, ding dongs, cupcakes, brownies, a lot of mac and cheese. Like, just the list goes on. He eats like a 12-year-old. So, so like that, but to me now, it doesn't even faze me. But I'm also coming from a place where I've just gotten used to it for so long. But I think the transition for me I'm like, I don't want you to live a life you don't want to live, because I'm choosing to live this way. If you don't want to live this way, I'm not going to pressure you. Do I wish that he would want to eat healthy and exercise with me? 1000% yes. I wish that was a thing, but it's not. So that's where it's like, okay, well, how do we live with this then, where he's a junk food person, doesn't want to go to the gym, and I'm like, I want to eat healthy foods and I do want to go to the gym. So the kind of thing where, I really started losing weight at first was just, again, like my mantra is make the best decision possible in every moment. And that still means that we would go out to eat and we would still go to bars sometimes. And, that sometimes I would eat some of his stuff, and it's a balance and like learning for myself to not deprive myself and not beat myself up whenever I made those choices of like, yeah, we want to go to a brunch with friends, and yeah, I want to have some mimosas and I want to eat a pile of bacon, and be like, that's freaking cool. The next time I eat, what's the best decision there? And just have that more of that balance mentality. You're not going to lose weight as fast, if that's your goal. But, it took me 2.5 years to lose a majority of my weight, but zero regrets. I mean, before I lost 60 pounds in 6 months, and when that comes right back on you, plus some, that sucks. I'd rather not do that ever again. And so, but that was because, I was just having more balance. And also for me, by choosing healthy foods that I also wanted to eat, that didn't feel like I'm on a diet and he's not, and I just gave somebody this recipe the other day of talking about apple nachos. I ate a lot of apple nachos when I was first getting started. And it's just slicing up apples, drizzling it with a little peanut butter, maybe use some little mini chocolate chips, some shredded coconut, and eat it like nachos. And I would slice the apples super thin so it would feel like more food to me. And I would make things like that, and I looked forward to that, and it was really good. So whenever he's eating his snack foods, I can eat that and I don't feel like I'm missing out, because I actually really enjoyed the foods that I found and I really liked. And that's still how it is, of like, I like what I eat. I know people, are freaked out about eating the same thing every day like I do with meal prep, or don't think my recipes or the things I make look the most appealing. And that's fine. I don't care, because it's for me. I like it, and that's all that matters. I mean, I hope that by me sharing that, it gives you some ideas or some motivation, or, I can help with sharing my own journey, but I don't expect anyone to eat the same way as me, including my husband. So it's like, but I really enjoy it, and I look forward to what I'm eating. And so I don't feel as bad. I mean, there's times too where he'll like order takeout, and if I say no, then I'm like, I'll just eat my meal prep, and I just don't feel bad. I mean, we'll still eat together, but I'm just at a point now where I'm like, some of that stuff just makes me feel like crap, mentally and physically. And what's the trade-off? And that's saying I don't say no. I mean, I do. Like, there's sometimes he could take out and I'm like, yeah, give me a burger and some tater tots. Like, whatevs. Like, that sounds good. I'm good. I'm fine. You know what I mean? But it's all just like that balance. And that also, the system that works best for us, again, this is me just sharing my story, not suggesting for anybody else to live this way, is we kind of, as far as food goes, definitely run completely separately, because he doesn't want to eat the food that I make. And also he's very anti-leftovers. So, and meal prep is essentially leftovers. And so, because I've offered a meal prep for him, and he's like, no. So I make my food, and that's for me, and that is my lane, and he buys everything he wants, and that's his lane. So I know that doesn't work for everybody. And I know in some instances of people I've talked to, that maybe that, breakfast, lunch, and snacks, or you're on your own level, but dinner, you have dinner together. And maybe that's where you can make a compromise of maybe it is like, let's have the chicken, rice and broccoli if you wanted to go that plain and boring, but also like, let's just do like a side of mac and cheese or something like that, or something that, that's going to, both parties will enjoy. So you can still share a meal together if that's your jam, which I don't do personally because that's just not our jam, but that's our situation, that we just kind of run food completely separately. Like the only time that we ever really eat the same thing together is if I like make us a pasta or something like that, a very unhealthy pasta. Then that's usually something to do together, or we go out to eat, or we get takeout or something like that. Because pre-COVID, even when we go out to eat, usually I would, choose separate things. You can get whatever he went on the menu, and I usually choose a healthier choice, not because I feel like I have to, it's because I want to. But sometimes I didn't. I mean, especially like sushi. I mean, both of us are like sushi obsessed, even though I haven't had sushi in a freaking while, man. Just because COVID, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I think we got takeout sushi once in 2020. But that's where we'll both go ham. Give me all the rolls with all the sauces on them. I don't care. Like, it is delicious. I'm living my life and I love it. So that's kind of how we operate. But I think that's also important to sit down and have a conversation with somebody. I mean, again, if it's really bothering you that they're not on board with you, can you find some meet in the middle ground? We also find meet in the middle ground when it comes to exercise. Not so much as since we moved to Cincinnati, but like when we lived in Oregon, where I'm really into hiking, and we lived in the mountains. So it was real easy to go hiking. So again, I would just kind of be like, want to go for a hike today? We'll start it off. Let's get a cup of coffee together at our favorite place, go for a hike. And then afterwards, let's go get pizza at your favorite pizza place. And so then he was like, heck yeah, like hiking isn't his favorite thing, but it's like, yeah, I'll go hiking. And then afterwards we'll go enjoy pizza together. And so it's just kind of like that compromise sort of thing of like, here's something I like and your favorite pizza place, and get some beers and some pizza. And that's like your favorite thing to do on a Saturday afternoon. So let's combine the two. And so we can both enjoy everything all together. And so at least that's, to the exercise part, usually we'll go for walks and stuff like that. But as far as just like going to the gym and lifting together, that has never happened. And that's not something he's interested in. And that's not something that I will make him do if he doesn't want to. Because I mean, if the roles were reversed and he was super health nut and I wasn't, I would feel like garbage about myself if he was constantly pressuring me to, why don't you eat this? Or why don't you exercise like this? I'd be like, he thinks I'm fat and I'm going to cry. Like that would be my interpretation if the roles were reversed. So, I mean, I don't want him to feel that way. I don't want to feel pressured to do the things that I do, even though he knows that it would be cool, but it's not that way. So that's just how it is. And so, that's just kind of how we do things. And yeah, it's just at the point now where I'm just, again, after years, that I'm not really tempted by those things. Just because I kind of, and a mind trick that I've always played too is it's like, it's not my food. I think of it as like the kitchen at work pre-COVID or anywhere you're at where everybody has a communal fridge. And, they got their name written on it. It's in their lunchbox. It's in the fridge. And that's how I see Mike's food. And I'm not the person that goes into a communal work fridge and will just take a sandwich out of somebody's lunch bag. And I'm like, that's mine now. You know what I mean? Oh, I'll owe you one. So I put myself in that mindset with his food of like, oh, he's got a bag of Cheetos there. Cheetos could hit the spot right now. That sounds kind of good. And I'm like, but I'm not just going to grab his stuff off the shelf and start eating it. No, if I asked him, he'd be like, yeah, you can have some. But then, stuff like that too. I also know myself of what is trigger foods for me that sets me into a binge. Things like Cheetos and chips and cookies and ice cream. I just can't do a little of. I just, once that flavor, like that, it's like drugs, man. And once it hits your mouth, you're like, okay, I'm not stopping. Which it is designed to do that. It is literally designed to make you want to keep eating more so they can keep making money. So it's not just that you don't have willpower. Foods are designed to make you behave that way. So I know if I'm going to open up a pint of ice cream, that pint is gone. There is no, I'm going to have a couple bites and put it back in the freezer, which he can do, which I think is insane. Like he'll all the time, like, again, I've never used a chip clip. I eat the whole bag. I don't care if it's family sized or not. It's open, it's gone. And for him, like he can just take the like little fun sized bags of Cheetos and eat half of it and like fold the rest up for later. I'm like, how? How do you do that? Yeah. So I don't. So I know myself that if I'm going to eat some ice cream, I am okay with it. Like this is going down. Pint's going to happen and you're not going to feel bad about it, and don't trash yourself for it. So I have to put myself in the right mental space for those things too, of like, again, check in with myself. How will it make me feel mentally and physically if I eat this? If I go and eat this whole bag of Chex Mix, how am I going to feel afterwards? And if it's like, I'm going to feel awesome, then yeah, I'll go for it. And I don't do those things that often, but because they do kind of make me feel like crap, or it starts to cascade into some other bad decisions sometimes, where it does make it more difficult to make the best decision possible in the next moment because it's kind of sent you into a bingey tailspin. So I have just learned after years of practice and experimenting, because again, it is a journey of which of those foods kind of do that for me, or which ones where I'm like, hey, you got whatever snacks he's got, can you portion some out to me and give it to me? One of those things is Girl Scout cookies. Girl Scout cookies, he keeps the cookies, and I'm like, hey, I want some Girl Scout cookies right now. Can you just give me a handful of them? And he'll just take them out of the box and he'll give it to me for some reason. It's all in the mind tricks, man. Then I'm like, these are my cookies. This is it. Not the whole box, which really legit is kind of the serving size. So it's those kind of tricks for that stuff too. Or there's something that he brings home that I'm like, this looks so delicious. Get it out of my sight. I don't know where you need to put it, but not here on the kitchen counter. Because I'll keep thinking about it. So like one of those things is like if there's like a cheesecake or a pie or something like that in the fridge, and every time I open it, it's there. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to eat a tiny little piece, and it's probably not as good as you think it is. And if it is, then I'm like, well, then I don't feel so bad about having a piece because this is the bomb. Or it's, it all just depends on where I'm at. Or it's like, hey, get this the hell out of here. Eat this, hide it somewhere. I don't want to see this every time I open the fridge. And that's fine. That has never, for me anyway, turned into any sort of fight. He is very supportive of what I do. So it's, and he gets it. So it's never like, he's never said to me, should you eat this? Should you not do that? Or I'm like, can you do this for me? And he says no. Although there has been times where I'm like, okay, tell me to stop doing this, or don't let me do this. And he'll be like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. And then the moment that it comes up and I'm like, he's like, hey, you wanted me to tell you this. I'm like, don't tell me how to live my life. I'll do whatever I want. Especially when it comes to drinking, of like, only let me have 2 drinks. Make me stop after 2 drinks. And once I have 2 drinks, I'm already pretty buzzed. And then he's like, hey, don't you want to switch to water? And I'm like, shut up. Dad, no. So yeah, you learn what works and what doesn't. So, I mean, hopefully that's helpful. I think stage 1 is to have a conversation with your significant other, partner, roommate, or whatever about, where you're at, how you feel, where they're at, how they feel, how you can kind of co-combine this. Where can you, make a compromise on things and just kind of feel that out and live it. It's all test, retest, right? So it's seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work, and also just having a level of self-awareness of what your triggers are and your behaviors around food or your feelings around food and how foods make you feel. Which sounds like a lot of work because it is. And it's like, I love living a healthier lifestyle. Like I've been doing this 9 years now, and it's just how I want to live, and it feels really good for me. And I found a system for me that worked for sustainable weight loss and sustainable healthy living, all while my husband loads this house full of junk food and beer. So there is absolutely a way to do this. It's not like I'm some superhuman willpower person that has some magic ability that no one else has. Like, it is totally doable. It's checking in with yourself about what your goals are. What do you want? How bad do you want it? What are the steps are you going to take to get there? Just like any sort of thing that you're going to do, making a budget, or making a bucket list thing. If I want to go to like Fiji in the next 5 years, okay, what do I have to do to save money, to plan, or whatever to get there? Like, it's the same sort of thing. Like, let's play out the game plan, see what works and what doesn't, and don't give up when you run into roadblocks, because you will. Because one day you will find yourself eating an entire giant Target tub of cheese balls and crying on the floor. It happens. And it doesn't mean that you suck at this or game over. It just means you learn from it. Like, okay, that's happened. And what do I learn from this for the next time? And not even say that won't happen again. It could happen multiple times. But then what do you learn from each time so you can kind of rework a different habit? So that's my strategy anyway. And also kind of finding a crew of people, like friends, family, social media networks, whether it's me, or just, being friends with me on Instagram or however I can help you, or joining a gym or joining a challenge or something like that. Like, also, it's really helpful to just kind of find some people that are interested in this lifestyle. I'd say that for me, I didn't really have anybody that was interested in this specific lifestyle with me until, oh my God, several years in, really until I got to Cincinnati, to be honest with you. So I had already lost the majority of all my weight, and it'd been years. And that's kind of when I started, hanging out with more health and fitness people and joined a gym and stuff like that. And that's where I wish I would have had more of a network, or, had somebody to bounce ideas off of, which is one of the reasons I started this podcast of, it's hard, and it's really hard to do it alone. So whether it's finding your crew on social media or in real life, or finding a coworker or a friend to do it with you if your partner doesn't, I think that's also a way to stay motivated, and is also incredibly helpful, because you can totally do it on your own. I did. But yeah, having somebody do it with you is also super, super helpful. So I would highly also recommend that as well. I hope that helps. I hope that answers the question. As always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. If you ever have any questions, or there's a guest you want to hear, topic you want covered, please email me at amanda@amandavalentinebites.com. If you could also rate and review this podcast on iTunes, that would be fabulous. Also, sharing this podcast is super helpful for me. Any friends, family, coworkers, groups that you're a part of, anybody you think that this podcast or a specific episode would be helpful for, sharing is caring. So thank you again so much. Love you lots. Talk to you later.
AmandaValentineBites.com